Baltimore General, an episodic medical drama. Written by Blue Bolton. Episode 1, Transfer of Care, Chapter 10. Emilia's body absorbed the words. Marla Hall's expression transformed before her eyes, confusion melting into raw outrage. "How dare you?" Marla's voice quavered, each syllable vibrating with emotion. "I have dedicated my entire life to that boy. Do you have any idea what it takes to raise a child with special needs alone? The appointments, the therapies, the medications, the schools that don't want him?" Emilia lifted her hands, palms forward. "Mrs. Hall, we're not accusing." "The hell you aren't!" Marla surged forward, her fingers slicing the air between them. "You waltz in here in your white coats, thinking you know everything about our lives from a few hours of tests." Shaw shifted her weight, positioning herself slightly in front of Emilia. "Mrs. Hall, please understand we're required by law to investigate any injuries consistent with trauma. It's standard procedure." "So now I'm a procedure." Tears welled and glistened in Marla's eyes. "My son is fighting for his life, and instead of focusing on that, you're trying to build a case against me?" Emilia's stomach twisted into a tight knot. This conversation had veered far from her intentions. "We're doing everything we can for Jordan. That includes understanding exactly what happened to him." "What happened is he got sick. He's always been sick." Marla's voice cracked. "He has migraines. He has nosebleeds. And now you're telling me he has some metabolic thing I've never even heard of." "OTC deficiency," Emilia offered softly. "It's rare, but it explains many of Jordan's symptoms." "Then why aren't you focusing on that instead of interrogating me?" Marla demanded. Shaw's pager chirped. She glanced down, then caught Emilia's eye. "I need to take this. It's the ICU." Emilia nodded, watching Shaw's back as she hurried away. Alone with Marla now, she tried again. "Mrs. Hall, Marla, please sit down with me for a moment." Marla hesitated, her body rigid with tension, before sinking onto the edge of a waiting room chair. Emilia sat beside her, leaving space between them. "I can't imagine how difficult this is for you," Emilia said, "and I'm truly sorry if we've made it worse." "You have no idea," Marla whispered, dragging the back of her hand across her wet eyes. "You're right, I don't." Emilia paused. "But I do know that Jordan has injuries that need to be explained, not because we're looking to blame anyone, but because understanding what happened helps us treat him better." Marla's gaze dropped to the floor. "He falls sometimes, during seizures. Has he had seizures recently?" "Last week, a bad one." Marla looked up, hope flickering across her face. "He hit the coffee table on his way down. Could that—" "It's possible," Emilia acknowledged. "We'll need to document that in his chart." Marla nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "We'll continue treating Jordan's immediate medical needs. The metabolic team will manage his over-the-counter deficiency. And yes, we'll need to file a report with Child Protective Services." "What?" Marla shot to her feet. "No, I'm not having some social worker who doesn't understand autism coming into our lives, judging us. It's standard procedure when there are unexplained injuries," Emilia said, staying seated to appear less threatening. "They'll investigate and determine if further action is needed." "This is insane." Marla paced the small waiting area, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. "I need to call my sister. I need a lawyer." "That's your right," Emilia said carefully. "But right now, Jordan needs you focused on his care." Marla stopped pacing, her shoulders collapsing. "Can I see him now? Please. Let me check if he's settled in ICU." Emilia offered, rising to her feet. I'll come get you as soon as you can see him. Marla nodded, defeat etched in the lines of her face. Emilia turned to leave but halted at Marla's voice. Doctor? Yes? I would never hurt my son. Never. The conviction blazed in her words. Emilia nodded. I'll be back soon. Her shoes tapped a quick rhythm down the corridor as her mind raced. The confrontation with Marla had crashed and burned. But what had she expected? No parent would welcome implied accusations of abuse. Still, something about the case nagged at her. The multiple injuries, the Vascatril overdose, despite Jordan's reported medication compliance, the delayed presentation. Dr. Carter. Emilia turned to see Dr. Ramona Bird beckoning from an office doorway, her silver bangles catching the fluorescent light. A word, please. Emilia hesitated. Jordan needed checking, Marla needed updating. But refusing Bird's summons on her first day would be career suicide. She pivoted and entered the office. The administration space gleamed with modern furniture in muted grays and blues, abstract art adorning the walls, and a large desk with nothing out of place. Dr. Bird gestured to a chair across from her. Please sit. Emilia lowered herself into the chair, noting the absence of personal touches. No family photos, no mementos, just credentials in frames and medical journals arranged by publication date. I understand you've had quite the first day, Bird began, settling into her chair, jumping straight into a complex case with Dr. Shaw. It's been challenging, Emilia admitted. But the patient is stable now, post-surgery? Yes, Jordan Hall. Bird nodded, opening a tablet and scrolling through what Emilia assumed was Jordan's chart. 16, autistic, presenting with hemorrhage and seizures, diagnosed with OTC deficiency and abdominal trauma of unknown origin. Her eyes snapped up at the last part. You flagged this as a potential abuse case. We found injuries consistent with blunt force trauma during surgery, Emilia explained. Multiple injuries of different ages. Protocol requires DOT. I'm well aware of protocol, Dr. Carter. Bird's tone cooled. I'm more interested in what evidence you have beyond surgical findings. Emilia's spine straightened. The patient had Vascatril levels 4 times his prescribed dose. He has unexplained bruising. The mesenteric tears we found are difficult to explain through accidental injury. And you've already confronted the mother. Not a question. Emilia wondered how Bird knew about their conversation with Marla. Hospital gossip traveled at light speed, apparently. Dr. Shaw and I informed Mrs. Hall of our findings, Emilia said carefully. As we're required to do. Bird leaned back, her chair creaking softly. You're new here, Dr. Carter. Baltimore General serves a diverse community with complex needs. We have to be judicious in how we approach sensitive matters. Something in her tone raised the hairs on Emilia's neck. Judicious? Careful, Bird clarified. Thoughtful, not rushing to conclusions that could damage the hospital's relationship with the community. With respect, Dr. Bird, my primary concern is Jordan's well-being. As it should be. Bird's smile never reached her eyes. And part of ensuring his well-being is making sure we don't alienate his mother, who will be responsible for his care after discharge. Emilia frowned. If she's responsible for his injuries, if, Bird interrupted. That's a significant if, Doctor. Carter, what do you know about the Hall family? Only what's in Jordan's chart and what his mother has told us. Exactly. You don't know their home situation, their support system, their history. You don't know if Jordan's autism presents with self-injurious behaviors. You don't know if he has a history of falls during seizures. Mrs. Hall mentioned a recent seizure where he hit a coffee table, Emilia acknowledged. There you go. Bird spread her hands, bangles jingling. Alternative explanations exist, and yet your first instinct was to suggest abuse. It wasn't my first instinct, Emilia defended herself. It was a conclusion based on surgical findings that Dr. Shaw shares. Ah, yes, Dr. Shaw. Bird's expression shifted subtly. Our brilliant but occasionally impulsive trauma surgeon, did she encourage this line of thinking? Heat flared in Emilia's chest. Dr. Shaw and I reached the same conclusion independently, based on medical evidence. Evidence can be interpreted in multiple ways, Dr. Carter. Bird's fingers drummed on the desk. That's why we have processes, protocols, chain of command. Which we're following, Emilia insisted. We're documenting our findings, ordering additional tests, and yes, we'll be filing the mandatory report with CPS. Bird's eyes narrowed. The mandatory report that can wait until we have more information, the one that, once filed, will trigger an investigation that follows this family regardless of outcome. Emilia felt her professional boundaries hardening. Are you suggesting we delay reporting a potential case of child abuse? I'm suggesting, Bird said, her voice taking on an edge, that you're new. Be careful about throwing around accusations without complete information. It's not about accusations, Emilia countered. It's about evidence, medical findings that can't be ignored. Evidence doesn't keep hospitals running, Dr. Carter. Bird's smile turned glacial. Reputation does. Community trust does. Donor confidence does. The implication hung between them, heavy as lead. A chill crept up Emilia's spine despite the comfortable temperature. Are you asking me to alter my medical assessment? She asked quietly. Bird laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. Of course not. That would be unethical. I'm simply advising caution and thoroughness before potentially damaging a family, and by extension, this hospital's standing in the community. She leaned forward, her bangles scraping against the desk. The Hall family has been coming to Baltimore General for years. Marla Hall sits on the board of the Autism Family Support Network, which, coincidentally, donates substantially to our pediatric neurodevelopmental program. That shouldn't influence medical decisions, Emilia said. No, it shouldn't, Bird agreed, but it should inform how we approach sensitive situations, how we communicate, how we time our actions. She rose, signaling the end of their conversation. Complete your tests. Gather more information. Consult with the pediatric team about Jordan's history. Then make your decision about reporting. Emilia remained seated. The law requires reporting within 24 hours of suspicion. And I'm sure you'll comply with the law, Doctor. Carter. Bird's tone made it clear this wasn't a suggestion. After you've done your due diligence, wouldn't want to file an incomplete report, would we? Emilia stood slowly. I'll discuss the additional testing with Dr. Shaw. Good. Bird moved toward the door. And perhaps consider speaking with Dr. Winters. He's been Jordan's attending for several years. He might have insights you and Dr. Shaw lack. I'll do that, Emilia said, though her mind had already rejected deferring to Winters after witnessing Shaw's assessment of his competence. At the door, Bird paused. One more thing, Dr. Carter. I understand you transferred here from DC General after some difficulties there. Emilia's blood froze in her veins. My transfer was routine. My husband relocated for work. Of course. Bird's smile remained cold and clinical. But hospitals talk, Doctor. Chiefs of staff exchange notes. I would hate for any patterns to develop in your record. The threat barely concealed itself. Emilia held her composure through sheer will. Is there something specific you're referring to, doctor? Bird? Nothing specific, just an observation that new beginnings are precious. It would be a shame to squander yours on an overzealous crusade. Bird opened the door. Welcome to Baltimore General, Doctor Carter. I'm sure you'll find your place here. Emilia stepped into the hallway, thoughts whirling like surgical instruments on a tray. The conversation had been more than a warning, it had been a threat. Comply with Bird's suggestion to slow walk the abuse report or face consequences to her career. She pictured Jordan in the ICU, his body betraying him in multiple ways. She saw Marla's fierce defense of her parenting. She remembered the surgical findings that couldn't be easily explained away. And she thought of Grace Hanley, the teenager whose case had haunted her at DC General. Another vulnerable patient, another collision of institutional priorities with patient welfare, another time when speaking up had cost her. The parallels cut too close to the bone. Emilia had hoped Baltimore would be different, a fresh start away from the politics and pressure that had made DC unbearable. Instead, she'd stepped directly into another ethical minefield on her very first day. Her pager beeped. Jordan's ammonia levels were climbing again. The ICU needed her now. As she hurried down the corridor, Emilia confronted her choice. Follow Bird's implied directive and potentially protect her career at the expense of her patient. Or follow the evidence and her conscience. Consequences be damned. It wasn't really a choice at all.